Shalom and welcome to Practical Spirituality here in Asia Torah in the old city of Jerusalem, overlooking the Temple Mount. May the temple be rebuilt soon in our days. So we got the situation in life where with all the shoulds, supposed to, like there's stuff we're supposed to be doing, and certainly everyone has that, but no one has it more than Jews, because at any given time you probably should be somewhere else. Just kidding. Just kidding. But there's a lot of shoulds, and like, for example, while the shul's saying Aleinu l'shabeach, you should be too. Except you're going about 65 miles per hour on a highway, having left 10 minutes earlier. So anyway, there's just a lot of shoulds in Judaism. And so we really got two questions here. And there's a bunch of questions here, which is yours starts with is, who says we should be doing that? Who says we should be listening to shofar all day? I know the rabbis say that, but how do we know that's what God wants? The Torah says Yom Teruah. That's what the Torah says. You want to say Torah is divine, okay? So it's Yom Teruah. What is that? Well, what is that? Well, the rabbis say that means shofar blast. Teruah means shofar blast, but is that what Teruah means? Is that what Teruah means? Teruah has a lot of meanings. One of the meanings is to wake up, right? So it means to wake up. Or Teruah, Yom Teruah, the day of wake up. Well, if it's a day of wake up, there's no better alarm system than a shofar blast. I'm sure there's people sleeping in shul who are just like, when it rings. But it could be you're asleep spiritually. And it could be, as we said earlier, you didn't get this online, but that it could be there's an emotional thing that's put you to sleep spiritually. A lot of people have emotional block, and it's put them to sleep spiritually. And I know this for a fact because I've known many observant people who were raised observant, who were no longer observant, who did some healing work with me. Like they went into like deep work with me. I run programs called The Possible You, and they did their deep work. And then I run into the guy like 5 years later, and he's pushing a stroller with a Hasidic lady, and he's got payas, and I'm like, I didn't recognize him, but he comes up to me and says, Rabbi Glaser, it's me. And I'm like, who are you? And anyway, it turns out he's that secular guy I met. And he said, well, I never told you I have a Hasidic background. And, well, what happened to you? He says, well, after your seminar, I decided to become Hasidic again. And I'm like, but we didn't discuss Judaism in the seminar. It didn't even come up. It's called The Possible You, not The Possible Jew. It's just about you. And he says, yeah, but when I got me, I got God. When I got me back in my life, I got Judaism back in my life. And that was many years ago. But since then, I've seen it happen over and over again, where when someone works through their thing, suddenly Judaism comes up big time. So what I would suggest to someone who's not really sold on the whole God Torah thing, and they're not really sold on Rosh Hashanah, and they're kind of, it makes a lot of sense that they're filled with trepidation to go into 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah, and then and then 7 days of Tshuva, and then a massive Yom Kippur no eating service. That's rough. So that's rough if you're not sold, if you're not bought into this. So that's going to be a rough time. So now there's two things to do. One is intellectual, one's emotional. Intellectually, we work three: intellect, emotion, and then instinct. So intellectually, get your questions answered. But if you've already been hanging around getting your questions answered, it's probably emotional. So if it's emotional, so then do your work. Figure out where's your pain, what's going on there. And also, I would suggest dedicating your Rosh Hashanah for that. Dedicate your Rosh Hashanah for that. Don't be as involved in the service, in the prayer book, as you are begging Hashem to either help you GPS where you're clogged, meaning where you're emotionally clogged up, and begging him to open it up and like surrender to the. And one of the biggest issues is the pain that would come with it. Meaning, if you, let's say you have a big emotional block, okay, and that's what's really in the way, nothing to do with God, Torah, or anything intellectual. It's just a big emotional block. Well, if you pull the cork off a big emotional block, well, here comes all the pain. Well, human beings are not into pain. Like we'll do anything to avoid pain, and we create whole hashkafas around pain. You know, these. We create a whole. Our worldview is basically how can I avoid pain, and so I'll create a worldview to keep me safe from pain, and so, but that's not very holistic at all. I mean, that's compartmentalizing a whole. That's like compartmentalizing one of the largest parts of my being, which is my emotions, and compartmentalizing it and locking it off, and just creating a worldview that protects me from having to open that stuff up. Now, people get stuck a lot because if you've got a background in Judaism, so it'll be a monkey on your back your whole life. You can't get it off your back. It'll never go away. Anyone raised with Shabbos, kashrus, Yom Tovim, and like just daily Jewish life as an observant Jew, I hate to say it, but you're trapped. Like you will never get out of it. It just never goes away. It's like trying to get rid of a tattoo. Good luck. It just doesn't go away. And tattoos are easier to get rid of because you can today use lasers, though apparently it's very painful. You just can't get out of it, and that's why people who are raised observant are so weird. Meaning in their secular iterations, they just, first of all, if they were raised Hasidic, they never can be normal. Like they just will never ever fit in, and it's so sad. But it's kind of cool in a way because it makes it assimilating a lot harder. But if you're like born and raised in Queens or like, some New Jersey town, that like that, where you don't have some thick Hasidic accent or something, and you do know what style is or something. Anyway, you can potentially assimilate, but you'll always have the monkey on your back. Hence, Hollywood, for example, who are all people, they were born into families that immigrated into the U.S., all their Bubbas and Zaydis spoke with thick accents and were observant. The next generation, though, was already Americans, and they founded Hollywood, whose themes, there's crazy amounts of themes in Hollywood of people dropping their Judaism, and these are like therapy movies, because what it really is it's Hollywood having their own therapy through movies they made about their parents' reaction to them being secular. And then at the end of the movie, it's the jazz singer, Neil Diamond now, doing his biggest concert of his life with his bearded father, his tall rabbi, in a hat. They made sure he was in his hat, I think, or maybe he was just in his kippah. I forget the final scene. I think he was even in his hat, black hat, sitting in the 5th row, like this. Meaning we're okay now. Even that generation says that our going after the American dream at the expense of Judaism is okay. And so, anyway, but we'll never be okay, and we're never going to be normal, and it makes all the more sense in the world for someone psychologically, forget whether Torah is true or there's a God, psychologically it makes more sense to light Hanukkah candles and make Kiddush and make Hamotzi and get those light switches set up before Shabbos. It just makes more sense psychologically to the person raised doing that. And it's just going to create a lot less weirdness in your life, because you'll never be the same if you're raised that way. But I do suggest strongly to come to Israel and pick the rabbi's brains, and because we do that. Like we sit, right, guys? We'll sit in the lobby. Well, maybe the other rabbis will, but they'll sit in the lobby and talk all about it for hours if you want. And you can just get it clear. But if the heart's the issue, so this torrential emotional upheaval is scary as hell. There's nothing scarier. There's no frontier scarier than you letting your pain out. But that may be where you got to go. And to get there is you got to deal with that. The last thing I would say is instinctually, which is the body, like the physical body, is intellectually, I said, was you got to get the proofs. Emotionally, you got to deal with your blockages. And, but instinctually, that it might make sense on Rosh Hashanah for someone who's not bought in and is emotionally blocked, is to just get yourself in there, close your eyes when that shofar blasts, and just let it vibrate into your body. It is going into your body. They're blowing the vibrations out of that horn. The horn's vibrating. That's how you make the sound. So let the vibrations cross the room and into your being. Like maybe just do that on Rosh Hashanah. Even if you don't buy in, maybe it can enter your body, on a physical level. Chabad is an international organization that's, who knows what their budget is? And they certainly don't, because they keep thinking Mashiach's coming, so they forget to keep books. And it's like, you ever been around a Chabad before the high holidays? They're like, okay, we got to figure out the high holidays this year. How are we going to get this done? You're like, you've been doing this for 40 years in this same location. This should be a no-brainer, man. Like, take out your notes from last year. He's like, notes? Last year? Like, well, let's first talk about the list of Jews around the neighborhood, this area. And he's like, list of Jews? Because they're sure Mashiach's coming every second. So it's like, there's no notes from last year. Now, by the way, that obviously there are modern day Chabad rabbis who are, doing the modern tech stuff and taking notes on what they did this year. But they're going body. They're just going body. Get that student to fill in, get that lady lighting candles, get that boy in a mikveh, get that lady in a mikveh. They're just going body. They're just going body. Of my friends who are Chabad rabbis of Chabad houses, which I probably got 20, 30 of them, I can name one who's going to make sure you know what you know, one who's going to approach you up here. Only one. Emotionally, I can name one, but we're not friends. I wish I were his friend. He's too famous for me, I think, is Y.Y. Jacobson, who's just this incredible, I just love everything he puts online. And I'd love to meet him. I'm sure we'd be friends if we got to meet. But he's just dealing with people right here. He's not mentioning that you belong in a mikveh. He's just here. And he's not proving God's existence. Y.Y. Jacobson's dealing with the heart. And I suggest, guys, YouTube Y.Y. Jacobson, because he's hysterical and he just gets right to the point of things right here. So all three are approaches to doing the right thing. First, get your head on straight, but you're not such an intellectual. We'll get your heart worked out. And if you're not so heartsy, then get your body worked out. But there are people who are not very body. Some people float around their head, like Moshe, for example. Moshe, you mind if I use you for example for a minute? Moshe's not very body. Okay, he's very in the head, and he's also very emotionally connected. He really is in his own body very nicely as far as emotions and stuff. And but he's he's only he's got one tentacle touching earth. He's just not in this world so much. And he doesn't care about it that much. So you get people like that too, and how do they get themselves doing the right things when they don't care that much about the body and what it's doing? Your body and what it does is not your highest priority. So don't worry, you're not on this film, and there's more than one person named Moshe, I think. So anyway, you understand, how do you get your body doing the right stuff when you don't care that much about where your body is? So the answer for getting your body to do the right thing for someone who's not that into body is, and there's an answer for many things. So it's kind of how do you say, a panacea? Is that how you say?
Cure-all?
What?
Have you seen like a cure-all?
Yeah, like a cure-all for so many issues, and especially around motivation, because this is the key to motivation. Learn this from Jordan Peterson. And I think we all know it unconsciously, but he made it super clear. And that is that everything you want to be motivated for needs an incentive and a decentive. I made up the decentive part. It could be a real word, but I don't know. You need an incentive that gets you in it, and you need a decentive that gets you running away from it. You need to be running towards and running away from. And the way they figured this out was they found mice, they trained mice to run a maze. Finding mice to run a maze might not be very helpful. There he is! Baruch Hashem. I was just going to keep going until you got here.
I was hoping that you were going to do
You did great. I have to finish the story, though. I'm in the middle of the
I
story.
gotta get the guitar anyway, so you finish up and I'll be right back.
You get the guitar, man. So, anyway, listen. So they had mice running a maze, and they had mice running a maze, and they had mice running a maze. Mice running a maze. And I'm trying to get you guys undistracted. And what they did was those mice ran the maze in like 4 minutes. They get to the other side in like 4 minutes. Fine. So what they did was they got them hungry. They got the mice very hungry. Didn't feed them for a few days. And then they let them out into the maze. But now they put some really stinky cheese at the end of the maze. So suddenly the 4-minute mice were 3-minute mice. Because they were smelling cheese the whole way, and they were just like, they were hustling. So they were able to knock a minute off their way towards the cheese. But then, that was incentive. Then they thought of decentive. How do we do decentive? They put the smell of cat behind them. Meaning once the mouse got in there, they just put smell of cat, like, I don't know, with a hairdryer and a cat. Blowing the cat with the hairdryer. I don't know what they do with animals in these labs, man, but I think anything goes over there. So. Where do you get the smell of a cat? Leave it to laboratory scientists, but maybe it was cat breath, because that's probably the scariest of all. So they had the cat, they were blowing it into his mouth. It was going like, with the maze right behind it. Anyway, but they put cat smell behind the mouse. And guess what? Not 4 minutes, not 3 minutes, but less than 2 minutes. Meaning it was even more than the cheese. Knocked off the time. These mice just went like, and like they banged into the cheese and skidded out for like 50 yards, They were like, get me away from this. So we all have to realize that now this is where, like, for example, religions created that concept of hell, decentive. Religions love talking about hell. I mean, they don't stop talking about hell. In Judaism, you're like, you can be in here for 20 years, you never hear the word hell. So, the Hasidim are kind of big on hell, but what do you get? That's what you get when you decide to not be intellectual about Judaism. You're going to have to scare everybody away somehow. So we'll talk about hell. You're going to go to hell. But the regular Jewish world, which is much more intellectual than the Hasidic answer to the Enlightenment, to the Haskalah, is never going to talk about hell. Hell is just not part of the program. The fact that you're going to have to pay for your dumb moves in your life if you don't do tshuva, obviously. Do tshuva, you're off the hook. But if you didn't do tshuva, the fact that you're going to pay for that is the most holistic, like, organic thing in the world. If you weren't going to pay for your stuff, so I guess God's got a sick sense of humor, because he's given you a sense of good and evil. You all got a sense of good and evil. He's given us a Torah that you can prove legit. And it tells you what the good and evil is. And now you want to tell me when you get upstairs, because in this world you don't notice it. If anything, good is eating the cheeseburger, because it tastes good and doesn't seem to make a difference. So it must be that there's some kind of consequence to eating cheeseburgers. There's a table for two right here. Must be a consequence for eating cheeseburgers. You don't want the table for two? Shalom, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy.
I feel bad we missed. It took forever. It is